I'm here with Mitch Warner, who just finished giving a great presentation, Chaos to Calm, Developing an Organizational Change Plan. And as I mentioned in that conversation, I have the good fortune of being able to sit down with our presenters and dive a little deeper into the questions that came up before, during, and after the presentation. So I've pulled some of there are a lot of amazing questions, honestly. So I've done my best to distill several of them into really key questions that a lot of you brought up. And Mitch, let's go ahead and get started.
Great.
Now, this question came up a lot. How can I help change feel less scary?
Great question. I think everybody's trying to work through that right now. I would say most important is transparency. Just be on the lookout for what you can share and to share that in as timely a way as you can. Think about what would it be like to be this person, and what are the kinds of things that I would want to know if I was in their shoes, in terms of what is the state of the organization? What is the state of the organization economically? What are you seeing about the market, and what our opportunities are, what our challenges are? You know, that the fear that we experience comes from just uncertainty, from not knowing. And so just ask yourself the question, what do I know that other people would want to know? And if we can provide that transparency, not only does it help us eliminate the anxiety of not knowing, but it helps create an environment where we can trust that the kind of information that helps us make decisions for our lives is being shared by the organization. So I'd say that's the most important thing. And you get to what do I need to share and when do I need to share it? When you just think about what would it be like to be this other person, or what would it be like to be anyone in the organization right now? What would I want to know if I were in their position? If we can provide a culture of transparency, then now we're not worried about what don't I know and what do I know. Now we can simply focus on our work and we eliminate all of the fear of the unknown.
Now, clearly what we're dealing with is unprecedented, and even the most highly trained, well-educated, experienced of executives and leaders are facing things they've never had to face before. And another one of the questions that came up a number of times was, where do I start?
Yeah, great question. Look, as we talk through the organizational change plan and how to use the influence pyramid to build that plan, one of the things that always sticks out for me is that listen and learn level of the pyramid. What don't I know? Usually I start, and I understand in a time of chaos, in a time when we have to pivot right now, we want to just get off the blocks as fast as we can. It's ready, fire, aim. And I understand that need to just do something now. But if we can just hold for a minute and ask ourselves, what don't I know? Are there things that I don't know that if I knew would change the way that we're developing this plan? And that gets to something even deeper, a place to start that I might need to start as a leader. And that is, do I see everyone in this organization as a person with a brain who's capable? Because if I don't, then I'll never ask the question that I need to ask. I won't be asking to really know. I'll be asking to look like I care, to look like I'm curious, not to find out, what does this person on the front line know? What does this person who's been engaging with our customer know about our customer needs and our challenges? What does this leader know about her team that I would need to understand in order to make the decisions that I need to make? And am I bringing them in? So where do I start? I start with making sure that I am seeing the people in this organization as people to such a degree that I become curious and start asking the question, what don't I know? That then informs a plan. And so I'd say just resist the temptation to dive right in. Take one step back and ask yourself, do I see the people in my organization as people enough that I become curious about what they know that would inform the plan that we all have to own together?
I think we all know that for the last I don't know, 10 years or so, maybe not quite that long, culture is a real buzzword. What's the culture we're creating? And we have a culture of fun, of work hard, play hard, and these kind of, to be frank, they're kind of like fluffy definitions of what culture is. And right now, we need to have a strong culture of change that's ready to pivot and move and do what needs to be done on a moment's notice. How do we foster that? A culture of people, an organization that's always ready to change and will embrace that?
Yeah, that's a great question. Look, culture, simply put, is the way we do our work. It's not something external to our work. It is the way we go about our work, how we do that together. And so how do you create a culture where we can pivot fast, where there's not resistance to change, where we're all eager to find what's the best way to go about this and do it together? It requires becoming alive to other people. And so I've got to make sure that everyone in the organization is so far outside of themselves that they can see what's needed. They can see what the customer needs, they can see what their coworkers need and adjust quickly. We talked at the very beginning about the need for transparency, about removing barriers to doing our work, to being focused on our work. Well, removing the fear of the unknown, that's one barrier that keeps us, that enables people to go to work without the distraction of wondering, what don't I know? But the next barrier that we have to remove is the barrier of self-focus, the barrier of thinking that my job right now is to preserve my job, to preserve what I've been doing. No, my job is to understand that there are needs that have changed dramatically and are changing moment to moment, and to figure out, how can I be most helpful right now? How can I be most helpful in ensuring that that result happens, that we achieve that? It might be that I've got all of my tasks and activities, and I'm trying to get clarity around that and making sure I do this and do that. No. I need to make sure that I'm looking at that and saying, nope, that thing that I've always done, not helpful. That doesn't help any. Well, actually, it did affect so-and-so. Let me go make sure that it doesn't affect them anymore, that's not critical. And then I'm going to push that to the back burner. What else needs to be done? And I'm looking around and seeing that. Now, how do I invite that in people? How do I invite that in others? Number one, I have to be like that myself. I have to get so far outside of myself that I'm simply focused on results. I can't invite anyone to that space if I'm not in that space. So that's number one. And then number two, I've got to be thinking about, have I prepared the leaders that have the most direct contact, that are in the one-on-one conversations? Some of them plan, many of them just happen in the course of our work together, that are leading meetings, that are leading initiatives. Have I prepared them to get out of their own way and to provide an environment where people can be invited to do their best work? If I'm thinking about it like that, number one, am I out of my own way? Number two, am I preparing leaders and giving them that transparency and inviting them to a place where they can be completely focused on helping their people become attuned to each other? Then we have a culture, a way of working that can win.
I feel like there are a lot of places where we can start. There's just a lot of things being thrown at us as individuals, as companies, as families, as a whole planet, essentially. And one of the questions that I wanted to call out, because I thought it was a really interesting way to phrase this, is what questions should I be asking when I'm faced with this need to change my organization? What questions should I be asking?
Great question. Look, I think that the first question is, do I see the people around me as people? That's the first question. Where am I focused? Am I focused on myself, or am I focused on others? That question can also lead to other questions like, am I focused on tasks? Am I focused on results? Am I focused on what I'm doing, or am I focused on what we're trying to achieve? Am I focused on how I'm looking, how others perceive me, or am I focused on helping the organization win? All of those questions are are questions that can keep us outward. But in a time of seeming chaos, it's so easy to become self-focused, to be focused on what I'm doing, and to be focused on whether or not people are seeing what I'm doing as valuable, rather than just adding value. So I'd say just start there with those three questions. Am I focused on others or on myself? Am I focused on tasks or on results? Am I focused on how I look, or am I focused on providing real value?
So as leaders in organizations, I think we kind of get married to the way things are, to our processes, to the things that we've built, to the way things work, whether it's our supply chain or HR or work-life balance, or whether it's big or small. And I think that's probably also true for our family lives and our personal lives. But as a leader, how do I make myself capable of embracing that change? We talked about helping create a culture where your teams can embrace the need for change. How do I do that for myself?
That is such an important question. And I think it's a question that, if we're not careful, can mislead us. Because the question is, or can be, quickly perverted into a self-focused question. How can I be the leader that I need to be? And at the end of the day, becoming the leader that I need to be, even if what I'm trying to do is become an others-focused leader, that project, engaging in that project, is still a project that's ultimately about me, not about other people. So the key is to become so focused on other people and what they need, what our customers need, what our reports need, what our peers need, that we simply engage in the work together. And if we're going to embrace change, if we're going to become the kind of person that we need to be, it can't be about me. It has to be about, it can't be a question that keeps the focus here. People change, people blossom, people flourish, people embrace change. They find ways to adapt. They become innovative and creative when they're in service of someone else, when they see that that's the need. Look, that's the customer need. We've never seen it before. We've never been alive to it. We've been so focused on, this is what we do. This is how we organize ourselves. These are our processes. This is my role, that I can't break out of that if I think, okay, I want to be a person who can break out of that. The only way that energy and effort becomes mobilized in order to do that in the right way is if I'm focused completely outside of myself. So while we can think that that's a helpful question, it's really the wrong question. The question is just, what's it like to be other people? What's it like to be the people that I lead? What's it like to be my customer right now? What are they faced with? What are their challenges? What's hard for them? What's a challenge in the way that they're pivoting? What processes are getting in their way? What are they waiting for? What's my team waiting for? What kinds of things might unleash their ability to succeed? If I'm focused there, then change will happen naturally. I'll move faster than I ever thought I could, and much more quickly than if I'm focused on being the kind of person who can change quickly. Does that make sense?
It does.
It's what I'm noticing in myself anyway.
If you could take that recommendation and distill it into what leadership quality that is. What is the most important leadership quality that a leader can have when faced with the need to adapt?
I think it's a focus on others. You know, you look at the amazing innovations that have happened over the last 20 years. Technological innovations, process innovations, product innovations, innovations in the way we organize ourselves. All of those, they feel, when you look at the final product, they feel almost clairvoyant. That there had to be some genius somewhere that came up with this, and it just happened to be 5 years ahead of its time. But the reality is that each one of those advances, whether it's advances in product or it's advances in the way we think about how we organize people, all of those were ahead of their time because the time in which they lived was burdened by the status quo, the gravitational weight of the status quo. And so they're not clairvoyant. They're just attuned in a way that feels rare to the people all around. They feel clairvoyant because they're attuned to what does the customer need? What do they need that they don't even think they need? What do they need that they're not articulating that they need? But when they see it, they'll say, that's exactly what our problem is. And it's the same with how we organize people inside of an organization. What do my people need right now that they may not even think they need? They think they need more clarity on their job description. Nope. What they need is they need to become alive to and awaken to the people around them and how they impact them so they can start writing their own job description, crossing that off. That's not helpful. Not going to do that anymore. That doesn't enable us to get a result. Oh, that's a real challenge for so-and-so. All right, I don't need to wait for a leader. I'm going to go talk to that person right now. I'm going to figure this out. And you see that in terms of what we can provide to the world as well as what's happening right here in our organization, that's a function of just being so others-focused that we lose ourselves in the work. And it's fun and it's engaging and it's satisfying, even when it's challenging. Maybe especially when it's challenging, because we find ways to do things we never thought we could do before.
One final question. Well, I'll say second to last question. We know that there are going to be people who resist. In the very best of times, change management is a major task, right? There are classes and certificates and entire majors dedicated specifically to change management. But this is urgent. This is critical. A lot of that resistance that we might face on a normal day, quote unquote normal day, is compacted and necessary. So as leaders, how can we be inspirational, especially to those who are resistant to change?
Yeah, that's a really good question. I would say, given the question, and it was said exactly right, we think about change management as a process, right? And we think about all of the different elements that go into it. At the end of the day, when we are in crisis and there's someone resisting and creating problems to pivot in the way that we need to pivot, we have to see that person enough as a person who matters the way I matter, and all the people that person impacts as people who matter the way we matter enough that it fosters the courage to have a conversation right now. And that conversation has to be the full, unvarnished, helpful truth. That conversation is, hey, what you're doing right now is a challenge. I can see resistance. And let's talk about where that's coming from, because the resistance that I'm seeing right now in you is going to create a problem, not just for you, yes, for you, but not just for you, but for this entire team. I need to help you become alive to that entire team. And if that can't happen, let me be as transparent as I can about what our options are. Look, leadership is about telling the truth, but it's not about telling the truth because that's what I know I should do. It's about telling the truth because I know that that's what I should do for other people, for the person who's resisting and for all of the people that person is impacting. We can't win as an organization. We can't survive. We can't figure out how to pivot and transform if you're engaging in the way that you're engaging. Maybe you're simply not pulling your weight. You're not working in the way that's required, or you're creating challenges for other people, or you're simply resisting the change that we're asking you to make. And especially when we're moving this quickly, especially in chaos, if I don't see my people enough as people to tell them the truth, then I'm not a leader. And so I would say, yes, think about, and that was what this webinar was about today. It was about the structural way to think about all of the different elements of an organizational change plan. But if there's anybody who's resisting, then we have to have a conversation now. And if I care about other people, if they matter the way I matter, I tell them the truth. And I think we've got to get better at that. And we don't get better at that by trying to juice ourselves up or, find and amp up our courage. We do that when we realize that this is what this person needs to know right now in order to succeed. And this is what is required of me in truth-telling in order to help every single person that person impacts. Does that make sense?
All right, Mitch, one more question. I try to ask this of everybody. There's a lot coming at everybody right now, not just us and not just as an economy, but as a world. And there's so much that feels like I've got to do everything right now, especially for organizations who are facing massive pivots. There are a million things that have to be done. What can be done for people who are watching this or listening to this right now? What is their biggest takeaway that they can start with today, that they can push stop or finish the session and say, right now, I'm going to go do this?
Yeah, that's a great question. I think if it were me watching this and asking that question, what could I do? What should I do right now? I think you have to look at your team and ask that question. This is going to feel like I'm punting the question, but it's not. Because I can say, well, go do this. Go, you know what, go think of all the people that are resisting and have the hard conversation right now. I could say, go sit down with your key leadership team and work from the top of that pyramid down or from the bottom of that pyramid up. I could say, go put together a list of all the things you don't know about your workforce, about the people that report to you, and go find out, go ask those questions. I could say, you know what, here's what you do with your customers in order to get really curious and find out the things that you don't know that would transform your strategy. I could say a number of things, but they might not be the right thing. That's the hardest thing about leadership, is that the right thing occurs to you. It's not prescribed by me when you see others as people. When you're so far out of your own way that you can say, what's needed right now? And I would say, if there's one thing, it's just have the courage to do that. Whatever is occurring to you right now, that, you know what, I'm weakest at this part of this pyramid right now. I haven't asked the questions that give me perspective. I haven't given people the tools that they need in order to succeed. I've just said, do this, and then expected them to know how. Or I've been too prescriptive and I need to pull back. I need to have a conversation that opens people up to doing the kinds of things that only they would know how to do. It might be 1,000 things, Sarah, and I know that there's 80% of the people that are watching this that say, Mitch just punted on that question. But I've been in enough situations like this to know that I cannot give you an answer. You can figure out the answer, and you will. In fact, it will occur to you. And it might be occurring to you right now when you just think about, who are the people that I work with? What do they need? What do our customers need? What don't we know? Do I see these people as people? And if I did see them as people more than I do right now, what would be required of me? And then just have the courage to go do it.
All right, Mitch, thank you so much. Pleasure to talk to you as always. I appreciate you taking the
Sarah.
time to be here and dig into some of these questions.
You bet.
All right, talk to you soon.
Great to be together. Thanks.
Bye.